This page is dedicated to the almost 2-year journey to become an education specialist in counselor leadership. I live in East Tennessee and I have my undergraduate degree in human development and learning and also a master's in school counseling grades K through 12. And both of those are from ETSU. So knowing that ETSU offered this online EDS, it seemed like a great fit for me. A little bit about me professionally. I've been a school counselor for the past 12 years in a middle school that houses grades 5 through 8. And in the past 5 years or so, I feel like the school counseling program has started to evolve for the better, at least in my system. And I hope that that is becoming a widespread trend as well. I'm able to do large classroom guidance, and I'm not a part of the related arts rotation anymore, which is a wonderful thing. So, because of that freedom, I'm also able to facilitate small groups. Most of those small groups are psychoeducational. And then I'm also able to do a lot of individual counseling. And students will self refer, parents and teachers will refer students, and then also my administration refers students for counseling. Until this year, I was also the school-wide test coordinator. So praises to our state level school counseling coordinator, Lee Bagwell, who has really pushed for testing to be taken off of our plates and not our responsibility so that we can more effectively serve students. My e-portfolio is really a visual journey of my experience in the EDS Counselor Leadership Program. You will find a collection of 4 artifacts that are work samples of my best work. They are a well-rounded representation of the program, and these are the artifacts or the work samples that I feel showcase my best work. These are some of the things that I feel most proud of. Each artifact is available for you to view, and I've also included a short video about each artifact to tell you a little bit more about it. That being said, if you have any questions, I would be so happy to hear from you. Or if you are working on something similar and you would like to collaborate on ideas, I would also love that. My email is listed there on the screen. It's zbra2@etsu.edu. So I would love for you to email me. The first artifact that you can find here on the ePortfolio is the Advocacy Project, and it was pulled from the Advanced Techniques with Children class that was taught by Dr. Rebecca Bird. The Advocacy Project asked us to acknowledge an issue that we currently had in our work site and think of methods for improvement. So recently, I had noticed more students were coming to me with self-injurious behavior, and more students were coming to me concerned about their friends who may be self-injuring. So it affected a multitude of students, ranging from 5th to 8th grade, also males and females also included in that. So I knew that this was an issue, and I also knew that parents had a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation about self-injurious behavior. So my advocacy project was a parent workshop designed to bring awareness to families. Families were invited, students were invited. So I speak more about this project, and you can see the resources that I created for it under the tab that's marked Advocacy Project. The next work sample and artifact that I've included is our action research project that we've been assigned in the Advanced Internship and Supervision class, which is taught by Dr. Janice Scarborough. This has been the only class we've taken that's covered 2 semesters, and the area I identified as a need in my school was reducing the number of students who are identified as chronically absent. I talk more about the need for an action research project to expand over the course of 2 semesters, how important that really is. And also, I shed more light on what chronic absenteeism is and what prompted this particular need for intervention at this time, 2017-18 school year. So you can find more about that under the Action Research Project tab. The third artifact that I included is the supervision contract that I developed in the class called Supervision and Counseling, and that was taught by Dr. Cassandra Pusateri. One component of the class, once we had already delved deeply into the supervisor internship or intern relationship, was to create the contract that we could use with future interns. So, sad to say, I have been a counselor for 12 years. I have mentored and supervised 4 interns before this point and had no contract of my own and did not realize that that was even a deficit for me. This class allowed me to understand how important it is to have a contract, both legally and ethically, and the components of the contract. So I invite you to check that out under the Supervision Contract tab. The final artifact, work sample number 4 that I've included, is from the Tech Applications class taught by Dr. Megan Owens. And this particular assignment asked us to research 3 current tech blunders that you could find in the news, report the findings of the report, and then also create a list of what could have been done differently to prevent the blunders from occurring. The really cool thing about the assignment was that we were not only given the task of finding these examples and examining what could have been done differently, but we were also asked to include the component of presenting these using video media, which a lot of us, including myself, had never done before. So I created mine as a fake news broadcast similar to one that you would see an investigative news journalist doing. And you can find that under the Tech Talk newscast. So you might be wondering why in the world, after 12 years, it took me so long to go back to school and get my EDS. Let me take you back to the day I was sitting at the beginning of the year in service for our school system. And before our director of schools takes the podium to speak, several individuals from our central office get up to speak as we are finding our seats and saying hellos to each other after the summer break. And the head of our human resources department was speaking. And through the buzz of the crowd, I heard her utter the words tuition reimbursement. So I leaned over to a colleague to ask them to clarify what she was saying. And the colleague said, "This year, the system will reimburse you for school if you decide to go back to get an advanced degree." And that was it. That was the nudge that I needed. So I emailed Dr. Scarborough that same day, and she was so helpful in holding my hand to get my application started, helping me register, directing me to those who had answers about setting up an email and my D2L account. And from beginning to end, she was a major cheerleader and support system. So the catalyst was having some of my tuition reimbursed, and another powerful catalyst was really just a feeling of restlessness that I had begun to feel after 12 years in the same position, in the same system, at the same school. I'd had students, and then I'd had their siblings, and then I had seen them get married, and now they were having children. And there I still was. So when I started the program in 2016, my husband and I had been married for 3 years. We have no kids, and I think I just needed a challenge. I have always loved being a student. I've always felt that it's given me purpose, and I think I secretly miss that. My true goals in the program were to sharpen my skills, not only as a counselor, but also as a professional. And also, I found in the school setting that school counselors are what I like to call an accidental leader. And while at first I shied away from that with having the mentality of, oh, I'm only here to focus on the emotional needs of students, the reality is that people in your school and your community need you to be a leader, and they need you to be a champion for kids. So those were some catalysts for me and some goals that I had moving forward in the EDS program. Were the goals achieved? I want to say an overwhelming yes. First, when you're a school counselor, you are faced daily with challenges, and some of them are out of your control, but a lot of them are in your control. Being in the EDS program allowed me to look at systemic problems with a more analytical brain. It allowed me to be less reactive and more proactive. For instance, I knew that we had a large percentage of students who had chronic absenteeism, but I never considered myself as someone who had any control over that. The program allowed me to see that, yes, I do. Looking at data, setting up a program, getting stakeholders involved, making changes that were needed. And then one day you see progress and you realize that you had a part, and that is huge. So, being immersed in best practices, whether it's concerning how to use technology ethically or how to help a student who's experiencing a crisis, sharpening my skills as a practitioner with the various techniques we learned, such as in our advanced counseling techniques with children, but also learning about different things like intersectionality. For example, when race and gender and affectional orientation collide, how does that affect your clients or students? And how does that affect their families? How does that affect their worldview? And last but not least, I feel more capable now to step up and accept the role of accidental leader. And by that, I mean school counselors are not principals, but we have a close relationship with administration. And we're not teachers, and yet we have a very close relationship with teachers. So there's power in this position, not power that comes from a piece of paper, but because we're able to see things from many different vantage points. And with that comes the expectation that you can make things better for all parties. So, with age and experience, but really it started with this program, it increased my ability to step up and say, I don't know it all, but I am willing to dig deeper into what I do not know to help you make a change. I found the most influence and support from the following resources. First, our EDS cohort of 8 counselors created a Facebook group. And this may not seem like a big thing, but I think this grew out of the fact that our program is online and there wasn't a lot of interaction physically between ourselves and our professors. So, what would normally just require a raised hand in class to get a question answered now involved posting on a discussion board or writing an email and then waiting for a response. So, with the Facebook group, we could quickly hop on, usually our phone, ask a question to others in the cohort, and then get an almost immediate response. And it was also a platform to share joys and frustrations. I think this was honestly the thing that brought the most cohesiveness to our cohort and the thing that provided me the most support on a daily basis. Our professors were always eager to provide assistance, especially if we were stuck on an assignment or if we needed clarification. My husband was very supportive and knew from the onset that this would take away a lot of time that we would normally be spending together. So, for instance, most assignments are due on Sunday around midnight. Since our cohort works Monday through Friday, most of our homework is done after 5 p.m. and on the weekends. My husband has just been a constant cheerleader and very understanding that weekends were probably not going to be, going out on a lot of dates or going on out of town trips, but I would be behind the computer doing homework. My administrator has been wonderful. He's been also going through an EDS program, so he understands the added stress of work and school. And he's been eager and willing when an assignment, like our action research project, required implementation into the school, he knew ultimately that the work in our EDS promoted professional excellence. And so he was behind me 100%. And it may sound silly to some, but I have included on the screen a quote that has helped to motivate me for the past 2 years. Again, the program being all online and having to self-regulate sometimes meant that I had the desire to procrastinate, or maybe I was just in denial or tired, or just wanted to fold my arms across my chest and throw a 2-year-old, I don't want to do this today, I just want to sit on the couch and watch TV size tantrum. Whatever the reason, this quote helped me to realize that even if I do an hour's worth of homework or 15 minutes worth of homework, I've put myself an hour ahead or 15 minutes ahead, which really helped me to keep going. The great thing about the EDS is that we are already in the trenches, so to speak, as school counselors. I am a school counselor learning how to be a better school counselor. The skills that I learned did not go into a notebook for future reference. So, for example, in our consultation and supervision class, it was taught one summer by Dr. Bird, and I recall emailing her on day 3 of the new school year to tell her how I'd used the skills that we had learned in class and already felt quite confident doing so. It was a really good experience for me to be able to do that. Also, so much of our program has focused on expanding our understanding of what it's like to view the world from various perspectives, such as what it's like to battle sizeism and ageism, what it's like to lose a child, how education and wealth and culture play a role in what types of mental health services you believe are accessible. For example, learning about classism in our advanced social and cultural foundations and the book Reading Classes helped me to understand the culture of the working class versus those who live in poverty. And why does that make a difference? It makes a difference because most of my students, close to 70%, receive free and reduced lunch. In the same class, we also learned about the danger of listening to a single story. For instance, media also gives us a single narrative for an entire culture. Like, Mexicans are always crossing the border and fleecing the system, but we rarely hear an alternate narrative, and therefore we create a stereotype. The third point mentions the power we have to change systems with our thinking, our language, our actions. For example, with the Action Research Project, we have the ability to identify a need at our site, research what has been effective in similar situations, and put a plan in place to facilitate change. How empowering. We know that we don't have to be in the mindset of reactivity any longer. Last but certainly not least, I added the impact of the EDS has been the realization that I am not alone. I've had the opportunity to meet and consult with more school counselors in the past 2 years than I have in the past 12. And we will definitely have these established relationships that will carry on past graduation. Onward and upward. I continue to put into practice the examination of why and asking the hard questions, and not just continuing to do things because that's the way that we've always done them. I am understanding more and more, and especially after the past 2 years, that people are seeking passionate leaders, and that you don't have to know everything, but sometimes it just takes a willing, courageous, brave person to step forward and say, I will do this. I will help you make a change. And then also to examine the system more closely and realizing that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we can use a lot of data that's already available at our fingertips that maybe we've even overlooked to help make those changes. So, the next goal for me will be another need that I have noticed in our school system, and that is working to establish a more therapeutic and comprehensive plan for student suicide threats, which will include the access to a universal screener that every counselor in our system will be able to be trained how to use and use that effectively. And then also who to alert and when. When do we need to call parents? When do we need to refer to outside mental health agencies? Things like that, protocol needs to be put in place. And then also implementing a team process for those students when they have been in an outpatient facility when they return to school, developing a process for getting those students back in school, making sure that it is as seamless as possible and that everybody is on the same page as to what's going on and what has happened, and safety plans that are in place at home, and are there things that need to be in place at school. So that's my major goal in the next year, probably for the next school year. So I'm excited to get that started with our school leadership and our counseling supervisor for our system. So again, thank you so much for spending some time looking at the ePortfolio. I hope that you will enjoy looking at the artifacts and looking at the work that we have done over the past 2 years. Again, feel free to email me with any questions or comments that you might have. My email is found again on the first slide, zbra2@etsu.edu. Thank you.